So it is TIMA6211 PoE, and we are doing activity 1. So just a few general guidelines for your PoE for TIMA6211. Please start with doing research and planning before you actually start your PoE, the writing up of it. Remember to reference anything that's not your own. You need to reference any ideas that are not your own. You need to reference. So please use the IIE Quick Reference Guideline so that you make sure on how to in-text reference as well as how to indicate the resources in your reference list at the end of your PoE. There's a nice article about academic writing, organizing your social science research paper, academic writing style. So this applies to all of your modules for the academic essays. I've also summarized that article for you at the end of this PoE. So this will be available for you on VC Learn under your classroom resources. Under the folder or in the folder module guide and PoE. I will file this slideshow that is exported to a PDF document. Right, so at the end of your PoE, please provide a reference list and please make sure of all the spelling, all the punctuation, things that has to be in italics. Please make sure of everything because that's an important part of your marks. We do use a rubric to mark your references, so please be aware of that. In the beginning of your PoE, there's a rubric that we use to mark your references. Indicate your word count for this first activity, please. You have a word count with a limit, so we need to stick to that. You may have 10% under or below the word count. I will explain that when I get to the format. Very important, please, when you are done with your PoE at the end of your document and you are satisfied that everything is fine and you have edited your essay and made sure that there are no spelling mistakes or grammar mistakes, as well as your reference list, then please export it as a PDF document. Very, very important. I am not going to mark any other documents than PDF documents. We are also only marking PDF documents, PoEs, that are submitted in the correct link. So we're not going to search for anything. If you do not provide it or submit it in the correct link, then it will not be marked. So please make sure of that before you submit. The naming of your PoE, please. You start with your student number, then your name and surname as it is indicated on our class registers, and then you end off with TIMA6211 PoE. So please start with your student number. That is the format that I would like your PoE to be in. Start with student number, then name and surname, and then you name your PoE so that you make sure that you submit it in the correct module. Please do not submit a TIMA PoE in another module. It will not be marked. You always have to submit a PoE through SafeAssign on VC Learn. Oopsie, I see that we can't see that very well. I would need to change the color here. The format, please use a cover page. You cannot submit a PoE by just starting with activity 1. Then I don't know whose PoE it is. So please start with a cover page where you indicate the module as well as your student number and your name. That should be with every PoE that you submit. Then you go on to the content or index page with your headings, subheadings, and page numbers. Right? So you will start then with activity 1, and then you will give headings if you use headings, and then activity 2, and you give headings if you use headings, and then reference list. You type this whole PoE in Arial or Calibri 12 font size. Use justified with a line spacing of 1,5. Please use headings, subheadings, numbering, and your reference list. I will get to numbering and headings when I explain the whole activity, and that is also optional. If you just want to work in a paragraph format, that is also fine. So I will explain that to you again. Export your document, your PO document, as a PDF before you submit. Very important, please. I will make sure that I do change the format color here so that it is readable. Very important. Do not only use Killen as a source. That is your textbook, but you have to do research and use other sources as well. Use credible resources. Very important, blogs are not credible resources. Make sure you know what credible resources are. Those are generally academic resources from organizations or universities or books, textbooks, not blogs, okay, or Wikipedia. You may get some information from blogs and you may use that. I don't want to say you may not use it, but please, if you make a statement that you got from a blog, please make sure that you can also verify that in an credible resource. Remember, people can say anything on the internet, so you need to make sure it's credible. Think creatively, please. Do not only use textbook quotes. I want you to write in your own words, your own understanding. Integrate theory with practical knowledge. Give me examples of how you would use it in class. Show that you are enthusiastic. Provide creative and engaging suggestions that would positively enhance teaching. So let's start with activity 1, the knowledge of content. This is an extract of your PoE, so that is how it is given in the PoE document. Your context for this activity is South African teachers in public and a few private schools are to teach using the CAPS document to ensure that they cover the correct content at the correct time. You, as an experienced teacher, have a much newer teacher, Mr. Smith, asking you for advice. He has been teaching grade 4 mathematics for 2 years, and school management has now moved him to grade 6 mathematics. Okay, so that is your context. You have a new teacher under your wing, and he has been teaching grade 4 math, and now he's been moved to teach the grade 6s. I do see that if you export this into our Blackboard system, it messes with my layout, but you will see that your PDF document will be better than this one. Okay, so your instructions. Firstly, advise Mr. Smith on how the requirements of grade 4 patterns, functions, and algebra, as opposed to grade 6 functions, patterns, and algebra differ. the requirements that's different. Then you need to highlight the areas of conceptual progression in the area, patterns, functions, and algebra, and describe how the conceptual complexity increases from grade 4 to 6 in the intermediate phase, in other words. Use examples to make your points clearer. Then the third part, you need to encourage Mr. Smith to make more of an effort to use ICT, in other words, technology, in the classroom by giving him convincing reasons and practical suggestions. So actually, your activity 1 has got 3 parts. Firstly, the requirements that is different from grade 4 to grade 6. Secondly, the conceptual progression that increases, and using examples to explain that. And then thirdly, the use of technology in a classroom, why you think it is necessary, and give him practical suggestions. Then again, the PoE asks you to type in 12 size font with 1.5 centimeter of 1.5 line spacing and normal margins. Your submission of this activity 1 should be 2.5 pages. It's more or less 1,000 words. If you type in Arial or Calibri 12, it will get to 2.5 pages. Right. So let's unpack and look at our rubric as well. You will see that 15 marks is rewarded to the requirements of grade 4 versus grade 6 patterns, functions, and algebra. So if we look at the last column, you should have a description of how the requirements of grade 4 patterns, functions, and algebra differ from the requirements of grade 6 patterns, functions, and algebra. Extensive reference to the CAPS document is made. In other words, you are going to look at your CAPS document and see what is different to the requirements of grade 4 versus grade 6. And you are going to quote from your CAPS and make reference from the CAPS document. So you cannot just copy the CAPS document. You have to write it in your own explanation and give me reference from the CAPS. Then the second part, also for 15 marks, is linked to your first ICE task as well, where you had made a table of the conceptual progression and increasing complexity. So if we look at the last column of this rubric, we see to get excellent marks, your discussion of conceptual complexity and its progression is thorough and clearly illustrates exactly how the complexity increases. The implications for teaching and learning are discussed through examples, which effectively illustrate the development of conceptual complexity. So it links to your ICE task 1. You can have it in table format or you can have it in paragraph format for your PoE. Even for your ICE task, you can have it in paragraphs if that is better for you. We do, however, see the complexity, how it increases in table format a little bit better. But if you want to explain it in paragraph format, you are welcome. Then 10 marks are for the reasoning on the advantages of incorporating ICT into your lessons. So to get excellent marks, you show a thorough understanding of the advantages of incorporating technology in the classroom and provide a very convincing argument as to why Mr. Smith should consider using technology. for 10 marks. You describe your understanding of the advantages of using technology, and you are trying now to convince him to use it. Then for another 10 marks, you are giving practical suggestions for implementing technology in the classroom. So to get excellent marks, you are creative in your suggestions that would positively enhance Mr. Smith's current teaching. Why should he use technology to improve his teaching? Remember, we said that for technology to use that in your classroom, it should enhance learning. So give him practical suggestions by making reference to some technology apps that you may use in your math class to enhance learning. Right, so the components of your essay. Firstly, you're going to have the title. The title of your essay will be Activity 1, Knowledge of Content. Then you are starting with an introduction, then a body, and then a conclusion. I want to state something in the beginning. If you don't want to use any headings, and you just want an academic essay with paragraphs, you are not going to name your first paragraph as introduction and have a heading as body and have a heading as conclusion. If you don't use any other headings, you just don't use any headings. So you're not going to name a paragraph as introduction and a paragraph as body and a paragraph as conclusion. If you are just writing like you write an English essay, you don't use any headings. So you're not going to name introduction, body, and conclusion. If you use headings, I will explain to you, or I will give you a suggestion of how you could do that. So in the introduction, whether you are using headings or not, you explain in a paragraph with interesting sentence to state the topic. Then you give a few sentences to explain the order of your planning. In the body of your essay, whether you are using headings or not, you explain in paragraphs an idea. Each paragraph has one main idea with supporting sentences. The last sentence of your paragraph should link with the next paragraph for a logically organized flow of ideas. Just as you were taught in school how to write an essay. In the conclusion, you end off your essay by summarizing or restating your intro. By that, I don't mean you just write it in the past tense. You explain how you have, or you summarize how you have explained your essay. And you need a strong statement to end it off. Also use a reference list at the end. If you use headings, I would suggest you use it in this manner, or you may choose any other headings that is applicable for you. You can start off with the first heading of introduction, where you discuss the format. Then number 2, the heading could be requirements of grade 4 versus grade 6 patterns, functions, and algebra. And there you describe either in a table or in a paragraph the requirements of the grade 4 versus grade 6. Make reference to your CAPS document. Please remember that. The third heading can be conceptual progression and increasing complexity. Illustrate exactly how the complexity increases. And I should add here by using examples as well. So I would just add that. Please remember examples is very important. Then incorporating ICT into the classroom. give a short definition of ICT and how it is used in lessons. Then you can have a heading to explain your advantages, or you can just have it in a new paragraph. Describe the advantages and argue why teachers should consider using ICT or technology in the classroom. Then the next heading or next paragraph can be practical suggestions for implementing technology in the classroom. Make suggestions and give examples. Give suitable reasons as to how it would positively assist in the development of pedagogical efficiency. Then you end off with a conclusion where you summarize your final thoughts in a short paragraph. You also indicate your word count in 1,000 words. So that is a suggestion of the headings that you could use. If you're not using any headings, then you also not name introduction or body or conclusion. So you are free to choose if you want to use tables and headings in your essay, or if you just want to use it as the format of an English essay where you have paragraphs explaining everything, new idea in a new paragraph. Okay, so it's up to you. Then the next few slides are slides about academic writing, where I have just basically summarized the article that I referred to in the beginning. You can read through this in your own time. There are a few slides. Please make sure that you read this. Please edit your essay. I am not going to mark grammar and spelling for you every time. I am just going to deduct marks because your essay is not edited. Spelling and grammar mistakes is not supposed to be in a final version of a PoE academic writing. You have got spell checkers, you have got grammar checkers, so please use that. I don't want to see an unedited essay because that means to me that you didn't put in any effort. All right, I want to stop here and ask if you have any questions at this stage. No questions. Geraldine asked if we have to insert an index page. Yes, please, Geraldine. After your cover page, you usually start an academic work or writing with an index page. Your index page for this PoE will be very simple because you would just have like activity 1 with a heading and then activity 2 and reference list. So it doesn't have to be a very complicated one. If you are using headings, you can include that in your index page as well. If you are not using headings, there won't be any other page numbers than just the start of your activity 1 and the start of your activity 2. Okay, so I see the remarks are that it's clear. Okay, so any questions that you have, we can discuss that in class further. In some of the other face-to-face classes while we are doing our work, because like for instance the ICE task 1 is mainly a focus of the first part of this essay. We are getting to the use of technology as well. In some classes I have started with that. So advantages of using the technology and practical suggestions you do research on, and you also explain that in your advice that you give to Mr. Smith. One point that I just want to make on this is you may address Mr. Smith in your essay, or you may choose not to address him. By that I mean you can just have a general essay of advice to any teacher. You don't have to say, Mr. Smith, I'm going to explain to you the requirements and the conceptual progression. It doesn't have to be a letter. It's not supposed to be a letter. So you can just leave out the name Mr. Smith for it to be a more academic version. So you can just explain to any teacher what the requirements, the progression in concepts, as well as the use and advantages of ICTs. Okay, so remember the 3 parts of your essay. Together, it should be 1,000 words. So please, people, examples, examples, examples. That is very important, both for your CAPs, by referring to the requirements and the progression, as well as for the use of technology in your classroom. You need examples. By using the examples, you also show to me that you understand the content, that you have knowledge of the content and you are able to apply it. Okay, then I think that is all for this session. If you do have any questions, you are welcome to stay behind.